You've done the work, you've followed the protocols, you've tried to take care of your body. From the outside, it looks like you're doing everything right. So why does it feel like your body is off? Why are the symptoms still there? The fatigue, the tension, the overwhelm that doesn't seem to go away. Here's what most people don't realize. Your body isn't just responding to what you're doing. It's responding to everything you've lived. The patterns, the stress, the beliefs you carried, often without even realizing it. And if we don't understand that deeper level, we can end up chasing solutions that are never actually going to solve our problem. In this episode, I'm joined by Andrea Nakayama, a functional medicine nutritionist and educator who has trained thousands of practitioners to move beyond symptom-based care and into a more complete understanding of healing. We talk about the connection between your biology and your story, why high-achieving women often stay stuck in cycles of stress and symptoms, and what it looks like to start listening to your body in a way that creates lasting change. If you've ever felt your body is trying to tell you something, but you can't quite figure out what, this conversation will help you hear it differently. Ever wonder how you check every box and still feel empty inside? Welcome to Rewiring Health, the space for the woman who holds it all together on the outside while quietly losing pieces of herself on the inside. The woman who fawns to keep the peace, overachieves to feel worthy, and sacrifices her needs to avoid disappointing anyone. Here, you will learn a new way. Each episode will help you understand your nervous system, break the patterns that drain you, and rebuild a life rooted in self-respect, calm confidence, and genuine inner peace. I'm Kelly Kessler, and this is your homecoming. Let's dive in. Have you ever noticed your skin reflects your stress? I used to struggle with mine, dry, dull, reactive, until I started pairing nervous system regulation with products that actually honor your body. That's why I love Milk and Butterflies. They handcraft every formula with 100% organic ingredients and powerful aromatherapy oils. They aren't just products for your skin, they're rituals that restore hydration, resilience, and calm even in the busiest seasons of our life. You can try them for yourself and feel the difference. Head to Milk and Butterflies and use my promo code Dr. Kelly for free shipping. That's DRKELLY for free shipping. Also, check out the link in the description for the podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. So honored to have Andrea Nakayama on the podcast today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yes, I'm excited for it too. And I know this is going to be something that so very much speaks to everyone who listens to this. But before we get into all the good stuff, I would love to just hear your story because that really anchors into your journey and what you can do to help people.
Yeah, so I'm a functional medicine nutritionist. I'm founder, recently exited of the Functional Nutrition Alliance, where I've trained over 9,000 practitioners around the globe. And my mission, my passion to work in this way really was born when my late husband was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was just 7 weeks pregnant in April of 2000. So this is a long time ago. But what we really were exposed to during that time were the big gaps in our medical system. And we were treated beautifully by the medical system. We had never been in the system, so to speak. We were in our 30s and all of a sudden dealing with a brain tumor. We were in the best place, one of the best places in San Francisco to manage dealing with a brain tumor. And yet still there were a lot of gaps, and those gaps were between what medicine can do and what we do in the everyday. So at that time I was working in book publishing. I continued to work in book publishing. My late husband, Isamu, lived 2.5 years after a 6-month prognosis. So he definitely lived beyond his prognosis. And it was after that that I realized this was my calling and put myself back through years of school, started a practice, started a school that I never expected to become as large as it was, raised my child on my own, spent my 40s and my 50s in high achieving mode, raising a kid on my own while growing a large business. And now really excited about what's coming next.
Oh my gosh, this is
Scared and excited.
yeah, I think that's just life. It's like when you're expanding, it's going into the unknown. It's like the fear, but also the belief it's going to be good.
Yes, yes.
Like your story is so profound. I think just to take that such a painful moment and something that could have broken you and turn it into what you've turned it into is just tremendous. And I love to, I know you talked about some of those gaps that you notice and between traditional medicine and some more of the other fields that we can navigate into. What were some of the gaps that you were noticing in that time?
Yeah, I think the first gaps that I noticed were that people are treated like their diagnosis. So, through the lens of the allopathic medical system, you are your diagnosis. All the other things that my late husband was, he was 31 years old and about to be a father and a software developer and a musician and loved to walk around in bare feet and, I mean, loved listening to music. None of that mattered. None of his story mattered. It was really just that he was a glioblastoma. In fact, they'd refer to us like that because I was pregnant. This back in the day, there weren't as many young people diagnosed with glioblastoma multiforme, one of the most aggressive forms of a brain tumor. So, we were viewed as that. So that was gap number one. We are our diagnosis. Gap number two that I found was that everybody with the same diagnosis is treated the same. So I have Hashimoto's. If somebody has diabetes, there is a protocol for how we address these things that doesn't really take into consideration context. And I mean context in so many different ways. So I went on through my career to identify more gaps where we think about what the doctor says and what we do every day and all the hours and minutes of the day, how we understand what's being told to us or what's being served to us in the noise online. But those two gaps were really the wake-up calls for me back in the day.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it's the identity, like when you start being called that diagnosis and that becomes the identity that you're being shared, especially by people of authority in a medical system, can be really profound because now
Yes.
that's where your thoughts are going to go. And to not see that there's a bigger picture. And often the diagnosis and health symptoms are more just that symptoms of
Yes.
something that's going on deeper, emotional or whatever is going on. And if we miss that, I think we really miss a huge part of what's going on in that. And so I love that you identify those gaps. And I'm sure you've spent years filling them and navigating that for people so that they didn't have to go through some of the pains that you were navigating that time. And I would love for you to go into a little bit more of like how did you navigate helping people in a way that you serve the whole person. I know you said all the other aspects of your husband, and each one of us comes with a story. How do you navigate that looking at the whole person?
Yeah, so I think that I was not coming from a medical background, which served me well because I'm a systems thinker. I'm a human-centered systems thinker. So I was learning about anatomy and physiology. I was learning about biochemistry. I was learning about nutrition, but it was missing something to me that felt pretty obvious. Whereas I think a lot of people who may be on a track that is very linear may not be asking the questions. And so I started a practice back in 2009, and I was having results that a lot of people around me weren't having. I was teaching classes, I was teaching people about sugar and about fat and what it does in your body, and I was watching in real life what was happening, where it was resonating when I would say something and people's faces changed. And so I was really starting to recognize what makes a difference for people besides the information that we're told or what we're supposed to do. And so that evolved over time to me having a growing practice, bringing on other clinicians, and then having other people wanting me to teach them, which was a real blessing. I never expected it to become so large, but I had to kind of strip off what I do and what was working for me in order to teach it to other providers. And I used systems and frameworks to help me teach into that. And so a lot of what I teach or did teach was based on specific frameworks that help us step step back and identify the problem before we go into solution. And I'm just going to underscore what I just said there, because a lot of times when we're dealing with symptoms, when we're busy, when there's a lot in our Instagram feed telling us what to do for that symptom or the other, we go right into solution and we don't spend the time to identify the problem. And we're often then doing sometimes more harm than good because we're adopting solutions that aren't appropriate for us. So for me, a lot of the systems were about, how do we understand a person's story? How do we look at all the connections in the system's biology, the full body systems, what's happening, and how do we identify what they're doing now and where it may not need to be as complicated as the world has made it? So really just frameworks and systems to essentially, if I just humanize the language, slow us down, sit in the pause for a little bit and not rush ahead.
Yeah, I love that. And I so much of like when you were speaking, it was like that can become that fear response. You get the diagnosis and then you're like, I need this fix now. And then fortunately and unfortunately, so much of our medical system is so specialized. So it's
Yes.
great because they go deep in things, but sometimes it's so deep, it's hard to see everything for what it is and have that communication, interdisciplinary to communication.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
be able to get a broader perspective and being like, okay, this is one aspect we have to look at, but if we address this, this actually might help this part too. It's like a rising tide raises all ships. It's like you can address one thing and maybe all things can be navigated in that way. And I can attest that I'm a physical therapist by trade, and I dealt with chronic back pain for years and did all the things that I thought, being a physical therapist, and it ended up being more of an emotional aspect to it
Yes.
that healed it. And that was my wake up call. Like, there's so much more than this. Like,
Yes.
it
And
helped.
like conversely, Kelly,
Yeah.
in systems biology, we're identifying just that. And that's what functional medicine should be about. It's really kind of gone off the rails, but it is an integrative practice that recognizes, like you're talking about, the gut is connected to the brain, the hormones are connected to the gut, which is connected to the liver. It's understanding those interconnections and looking at the whole. And I always joke that the one that was hardest for me to recognize was the physiological, the musculoskeletal piece. So
Mhm.
converse to you, I could see the physiology in the body, but it took me a kind of wake up call to recognize, oh yeah, and the physical structure and the bones and joints and muscles too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like the lens in which you see it, and if you can
Yes.
broaden your own lens and have a greater understanding, you gain that clarity. And one
Yes.
thing you shared, I saw this. I think it was maybe in the one page you signed, was the biology versus biography. Can you, and
Yes.
then interconnecting those? Can you tell us about that? I love that. I love that. Like, so I just would love for you to share a little bit more into that. I want to take a brief moment to pause from the episode to share something that I've noticed so many women struggle with, and maybe this resonates with you, that you do not feel safe to honor your own needs. You might be the one who learned how to be easy, capable, and reliable, and yet you're tired of overriding yourself. You're tired of explaining your no, you're tired of feeling guilty for wanting space, and tired of shrinking your truth to keep the peace. The thing that most people don't realize is that you can't actually protect your peace without a sense of inner safety. And without that safety, boundaries feel harsh, guilt feels unavoidable, and self respect feels like something you're constantly working at instead of resting into. If you have that quiet, steady craving for self respect, the kind that lives in your body, Self Respect Reset was created for you. It's a guided, body based experience designed to help you rebuild inner safety, trust yourself again, and honor your needs without guilt, explanation, or self abandonment. You can find the link below, and I can't wait to. The link to join is in the show notes, and you'll find the link below in the show notes whenever you're ready. If this calls to you, you can find the link in the show notes to join. If this speaks to you, you can find the link to join in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, and I'll take you on my journey. So, in one of the frameworks that I use is the Functional Nutrition Matrix, and that's designed off the Institute for Functional Medicine's Matrix. And I just made it more applicable to the end user, to us as patients, so we could see again what I call the story, the soup, and the skill. So the soup is all of what we were just talking about: your gut, your brain, your hormones, your physical structure, your environmental inputs. It's all that that's going on. And the skill are the things we do: sleep and relaxation, exercise and movement, nutrition, hydration, stress resilience, relationship networks. It's all those things that we go to do. Let me be the doer. And there's another piece on the other side of the soup. So the soup, all of that's happening in the inside body, is flanked by the skill, the things we do, and the story. And in functional medicine, the story is what we call the ATMs: the antecedents, the triggers, and the mediators. And what I found was that we just weren't focusing enough on the story. It was kind of a nod to the story, but not really understanding that not just the big T traumas and the big stories that we tell, but the little things that are like the red thread that lead up to how we think, how we act, why we're overachieving, what we're looking to achieve. All of those things are a part of the therapeutic story. They're the therapeutic narrative that helps us to help somebody come into their true healing potential. So that's what led me to study narrative medicine, which really, I think, is like the beautiful, deep listening that we can do as clinicians, but we can also do as patients ourselves, to our stories and our biographies that led us to this point in time. And we can call them emotional, we can call them trauma, we can call them adverse childhood experiences. I'm even interested in like the little things that led to our belief systems, because our beliefs do impact our health. And there's more and more research to show that.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's so much, there's so much power behind that, because it's not necessarily like what's happened, but it's like the meaning we give it. Like if we
Yes.
think that our diagnosis is the end all be all, we'll live with it for life, you will, because that's
Yes.
how powerful your belief system is. So I love that you integrate both of those and realize like how much power we have within ourselves to change things and improve things and really navigate our health. And I would love for you to share a little bit of your perspective on this, because I think something that so many people get stuck in is that you go to maybe a medical provider or somebody and you relinquish your inner authority to them.
Yes.
Think they know better than you. Can you share what your approach is for allowing people to make their decisions, knowing what's right for them, and really connecting with themselves?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think, I've spent the last year really studying longevity and really thinking about what is a female perspective to this this evolving space that's so much about science and technology. And some of the books that I read in this year of a book club on longevity really talked about mindset. And I'm not what I would call a mindset person. Like it's not where I would label myself, but seeing the science behind mindset and our belief systems was really powerful for me. And part of that is where we relinquish our agency, like you're talking about, and where we know, what am I the expert in, and what is this person I'm seeing the expert in, and understanding that distinction. So one of the things I would always teach is that one of the primary tenets of a functional practice, a truly functional practice, is what we call the therapeutic partnership. A partnership means that two people are coming together for certain outcomes and results. There is going to be the expert, you, Kelly, in the room, who has expertise, and I may be coming to you and wanting your expertise on what you have expertise in, but you don't have expertise in something that I, as your patient, have expertise in the room. And what I have expertise in is myself. And so we have to make sure that we're bringing ourselves into the conversation. Sometimes that's as simple as being able to track and know what we're sharing. So one thing I like to share with patients is know the difference between a sign and a symptom so that you are speaking the language of the medical person. A sign is something they can measure with, even if you were unconscious or couldn't speak to them. So a temperature, a rash, other things that are going to be symptoms like fatigue or a headache, they can't measure. So one thing to do just to prepare yourself is separating those two things. So you're not speaking Japanese and English in the same sentence to somebody who's looking for what they can measure and thinking about that other thing differently. But also knowing about the top things that you're going to ask for. So let's say I'm going to talk about my fatigue, or I'm going to talk about my migraines. I've done some tracking so that I show up with my provider with some additional information. It seems to happen at 3 o'clock every day. I've been noticing it increasing. I measured it between 1 and 5. Last year, I felt like it was a 3. Now I feel like I'm struggling with a 5. That signals a couple things. One, it signals that you're invested in your own life. And so you are taking agency, not in trying to fix, but in trying to listen and understand. And the other thing it signals is that they can get more specific in how they're helping you because you've given them more information than they would know by just like labeling it, oh, it's fatigue, do this. So, I think there's ways that we can be tuning in to our own realities that help us show up with more agency and the reminder that our providers are experts, but they're experts in what they studied and they did not study you.
Right. Yeah, I think it's such a powerful reminder to have that cohesion between the perspectives and knowing at the end of the day, you filter through what you know is right for you and to know when to follow guidance and maybe to question some guidance. I think
Yeah.
it's so powerful.
Yeah, I
And
think we can also go more slowly. Like, sometimes people don't feel like they can give any pushback because we're also hungry. If we're not feeling well, we're like, give me the answer, give me the fix. And so
right.
we are as complicit in that whole ecosystem of the quick fix protocol thinking because that's what we're looking for.
Right. Absolutely. I would love to go deeper because that awareness of your body signals. I know so many women that listen to my podcast that have really disconnected from themselves or they really downplay things or normalize things, but they are actually some of those signals our body is telling us. How do you suggest to women that maybe have disconnected from themselves or dissociated from their symptoms? How do you navigate listening to those and actually giving them some credence in what they
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think deep listening, as I learned in, studying narrative medicine, is a skill. And when we don't have that skill, whether we're people or people who are practitioners, it takes some practice. And I think that practice comes from sitting in awareness, whether it's sitting with your children and actually being present and listening to what they have to say, and then taking a few minutes in the morning or in the evening listening into yourself with the same attention. Sometimes listening to music or looking at art or reading poetry, like allowing yourself to literally feel that power of being moved is a way back to ourselves. So what I like to do is invite people into that practice outside of themselves, whether it's nature or your children or a movie or even a commercial that might make you cry, and stopping everything and be like, wow, what was that? Where am I sitting with that? And it doesn't have to be this huge practice. It's just taking those moments to be fully present and be moved and notice what moves us and tuning that back into ourselves. And I also just want to say, if we can slow it down to speed it up, whether that's in our work life or in our healing journey, we will get further faster. And I just want to tell a story here. I'm in a big transition. I just left the business I founded 15 years ago. Super hard transition. And I have ideas about what's next. I am a high achieving, nearly 60-year-old woman, but I have achieved, I'm a creator. I do, and I get it. And I had to slow myself down and say my job right now is transition. So I've been writing very extensively an 8-part long form series on transition. I've been studying what transition feels like. And in terms of taking care of myself, I decided I had to focus on the basics. Sleep is my job. I'm not setting the alarm clock in the morning. I still may wake up at 4:30 because I'm in an alarm state, but this morning I may sleep till 6:15. My job is transition. Yes, my morning routine is shifted because I'm not waking up to do my morning routine in that achievement way. But eating the rainbow, eating more colors and vegetables and sleeping is my job right now in terms of my healthcare. I'm not looking to take a new stack of supplements to help me through change and transition or the stress response. I'm just doing what I do and continuing on. So I just want to give the message of slow it down to speed it up as a way that we can tune in to what the body really needs instead of, like you said, outsourcing to what promises to get us over the rainbow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's a message that you can't hear enough because you can so get stuck in I checked all the boxes, I did all the things, and trying to integrate more and more things that everybody tells you need to do. And then you just become this bomb of overwhelm. But it's,
Totally.
it's realizing that that's enough. That's enough. You don't have to have everything checked off. It's enough just to take care of yourself that day. And I
Yes.
think it's something we need a reminder of over and over again to be okay, we're not shaming ourselves because we didn't cross everything off the checklist that day.
Exactly. And I always like to remind people that sleep, poop, and blood sugar balance are our non-negotiable trifecta.
Mhm.
For you may have your own non-negotiables too, like the things that work for you. But if you just take one of those and get curious, don't get blamey. I'm not sleeping. I stayed up till 11. I'm supposed to go to sleep at 10. I didn't. Don't get blamey. Just get curious.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And that's that curiosity, even just asking yourself, how can I approach this with curiosity? That can really open up things and become more expansive rather than why didn't you do this? Why is
Yes.
this not done?
Yes.
Yeah, it's so powerful. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it's one of those messages that it could be on repeat for so many
Yes.
of us, myself included, many
Yes.
times.
Me too.
Yes. I know you touched on longevity, and I'd love to go a little bit deeper in that because I know you've mentioned and something I read about yours, but that there's something missing in longevity that we're really focused on quantity, but maybe not quality. Can you
Yes.
dive deeper into that and what that means
Yes.
for us?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've made longevity a math problem, and it's about the numbers and it's about the lifespan. I think there are more conversations that are looking at health span, but I feel like it's also about life space and health space. I feel like there's something missing when we're in achievement mode about living longer. The other thing that I'm looking at on the other side of that is we think about longevity through the rear view mirror. So everything, even hormone therapy, and I am not against hormone therapy, although I do not like how it's being discussed right now. Yay, menopause is getting more attention. That's brilliant. But the way it's getting more attention, I think, is bypassing a lot of what we've been talking about here in terms of slow it down to speed it up, in terms of understanding biography, understanding timing, so many contextual issues. But longevity isn't just about being younger. I'm not interested in idealizing my reproductive years. I'm interested in building the future that I want to live into. And so for me, a female lens on longevity means that we create the space and the individual purpose that helps us to age with more grace. And that doesn't mean my face looks a certain way or my body looks a certain way. I know we get attached to those things, and I am too, but it means that I actually have an enjoyable lifespan and health span, not just the exclusion of, but also the inclusion of. And that's a conversation I'm still like figuring out. But I think there's a big gap, going back to the gaps between the science and evidence of longevity and the lived experience of the 50 plus female population. And I will tell you again another story. My son graduated from college 2.5 years ago. He was living in New York. He traveled to Asia. When he came back from Asia and we were in New York, I was visiting him in New York. And at some point he said, I think I want to move back to Tokyo. And I was like, my whole body went into revolt, and I try to be such a supportive parent, but I was like, it's so far away. And he was like, you're gonna love it. And in that instant, my nervous system went from no to, oh, he's flying. This is a good mama moment, not a bad mama moment. But that moment is kind of what woke me up to the reality that our roles change. And as we age, especially as women who have been high achieving, who are living this life as both moms and executives or workers, like our identity is so tied up in those roles, and the roles shift. And that shifting reality made me think differently about how I want to prepare for what was coming. He does live in Tokyo. I'm going to visit him in a week and a half. It's the first time I'm going. But yeah, that was kind of a wake-up call for me. And then, as I said with works, more have come. But we don't get to hold on to the role that we're in our 40s forever. And so we can be thinking about who we want to be, not just the check boxes and what we want to achieve.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so powerful. And just that power of like accepting that things will change, being able to let go some of those attachments of how we thought they would be or what they would
Yes,
look like, and then being open and receptive to the new part. I think that's really like, I mean, suffering is like holding on to attachments that no longer
exactly.
serve us or are evolving, and we're trying to hold them together and
Yes,
control it. But like it's really in letting go. And how much I know for me with that, it comes down to that trust of like trusting the process, releasing that. How much did that play a role in you, like learning to trust yourself, learning to trust everything that is evolving around you?
exactly. I think it's that trust and also that inner comfort and belief that we are somebody without those particular roles or identities. So that deep sense of self, and that moment with my son on a, Brooklyn sidewalk when we're having that conversation, I was grasping, like you're talking about, to some belief I had, even though he'd been away at college. We'd already empty nested. He was in New York. I'm across the country, but that was easy, no big deal. I was attached to, I'm still his mom, and this still means XYZ. And I was struggling. And really, it was just that moment of him saying, you're going to love it, without skipping a beat, that gave my nervous system the relief that it's okay. It's okay. And I trust him, and I trust me, and I trust our relationship. And my mind was caught in some other notion of that. And I think that's an external of what happens internally, no matter what we're grasping onto or holding onto and not able to let go of. And we're still here and we're still the same person and we still have opportunity to evolve. The thing I keep saying is like, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I don't know what that's going to look like. I have ideas, but like, I'm not done. And that is, I think, the trust that you're talking about.
Absolutely. I think it's such a beautiful reminder because age can be like I was in this like book workshop and I was talking about Louise Hayes started her company when she was like 60, you know?
Yes.
So it's like that there's so much possibility and I think sometimes society likes to paint it almost like the possibility is ending after you hit a certain age, but it's really just opening it up. And I also listened to another podcast and this woman was like talking and she was like, menopause was like the gateway for me stepping into my
Totally.
power. And
Yes.
I would love for you, like, maybe can you talk about that? Like, what was your experience of like that transition from like, especially I think the norm around it is like we're gonna have hormones fluctuation change, changes and all you hear is hot flashes, mood swings, like all the worst things, which may be part of the experience. But what are some of the more enlightening things that women can experience and be proactive in experiencing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it's recognizing that you're in a transition, right?
Mhm.
Like your body is going through a transition and it's adapting to the transition. And I think we look for quick fixes to the symptoms that are a sign of the transition. Your hormones are changing. They changed in puberty, didn't feel good then, may not feel good now, very different for everybody. I will say that I think of hormones in a kind of pyramid for anybody who's listening and not watching. And the baseline of the pyramid is blood sugar, and then insulin, and then cortisol. I'm moving up the pyramid, then thyroid, then sex hormones. So when somebody is having those symptoms, I go down to the base and make sure we have the foundation to manage the symptoms of menopause. I'm going to say I was very fortunate. I don't even remember, like, I didn't have a lot of symptoms of menopause. So I was very lucky not to have it in my face in a very difficult to handle way. But I think that's because I tend to those foundations. So I would notice that if I had a hot flash in the middle of the night, what made them worse was my bedtime. If I went to
Mhm.
bed later, if I was aroused, in a not sexual, but like, TV, news, whatever way at night. So my nervous system wasn't coming into reset stage and I took care of that and I didn't have the hot flashes, right? So I was addressing it bottom up instead of top down. And that helped me manage any of the symptoms that I have. I don't notice any difference in my brain function, in any of the things that get fed to us that we have to be fearful about. And I don't personally feel good on hormone therapy. That could be for a number of different reasons, but we have to remember that it's not just a fix for what we're experiencing. What we're experiencing is a transition. We are no longer going to be reproductive. Women have done this as long as they've been able to live longer lives past the reproductive years. We've had the fortune of moving into a different reality. It opens things up in all sorts of ways if we let it. It opens us up to step into our wisdom, to know ourselves and our expertise, to not give a I think you said I could
You
curse.
can say it, go for
To not
it.
give a shit what
Yeah.
everybody thinks about us or wants about us, and to stand
Right.
more firmly in who we are because we earned the place to get here. And I think, there's a there's just a huge opening and opportunity to say, like, I'm not done. I get to create, I get to live the life I want to live, and I'm going to make that happen for myself instead of seeing it as being thrown out to pasture.
Right, which goes back to the belief systems that we talked about before.
Yes.
If you believe it's going to be the end and it's only downhill from here,
Yes.
most likely will be. But if you have a different belief of like, oh, this is my new beginning, then you get to see more of that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Kelly, I was just talking to my mom last night, and she lives in California. Her best friend from college lives in New Jersey.
Mhm.
And they've both now lost their partners, who they all were a foursome together. They met in college or before. So the men are now both gone. My dad died 9 years ago, and my mom actually fell in love again with another man, which she never would have expected, and he's passed too. So she's been through two deaths and had to remake herself. And she goes to dance class, she goes to chair yoga, she plays the piano every day, she's in two mahjong groups, she plays canasta, she like does all these things. She has dinner with friends, goes to see concerts. She keeps her life full. And she was telling me that when her best friend came, and these are women who are in their later 80s, they've known each other for over 70 years. And my mom's best friend she doesn't know what to do with her life. And so my mom was coaching her, like, you liked the chair yoga I brought you to, find one near you. Like, she was trying to help her. And it's just what we're talking about at any stage. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. You got to find the class and show up. You got to keep doing things that keep you in kind of the oscillation between the loss and feeling that grief and the restoration, which is, I'm still here, I'm still living. And that's true of any transition, including menopause. I don't want to gloss over the loss piece of it. It is a time of life that is over, but going back and forth between, okay, that is over, and I don't need to worry about birth control anymore. Like,
Right.
whatever the freedom is, that
Yeah.
we can kind of go between the two as we're adjusting.
Yeah, yeah, I found that, grief and that relief coexist, and
Yes.
really navigating that, just like you shared, it's allowing yourself to feel the grief of, there's so many things that can feel like a loss and the transition throughout your
Yes.
entire life, but then also realizing that like maybe the end of that is actually the beginning of something else, and then
Yes.
choosing to see it from that perspective. And
Yes, and we don't even need to know yet. We just need to
yeah,
touch the
right.
reality. I mean, the transition series I'm working on, the last one talked about like what you're saying. It's like a Venn of two circles, and sometimes the grief is bigger and sometimes the relief is bigger, and it's just kind of moving all the time. And if you think of like acclimatization, like somebody climbing Mount Everest. It takes going up and going down, going up and going down. It takes our bodies time to really come into a new normal. That's menopause. Like menopause or perimenopause, that period before the last period, that
Yeah.
stretch of time is a period of acclimatization to a new physiological normal.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And it is that you can feel almost yourself like you want to go back to that place of familiarity where you know it. So
Of
that's like
course.
it draws you back, but then that's not really there anymore. So you're kind of going to that, but there's that middle ground of like figuring out who you are. And that's,
Yes,
I find, the most difficult because the life you knew is kind of gone, but the life
exactly.
you are dreaming of hasn't really arrived. And you're figuring out like, okay, where is the dust going to settle? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And that, just a big allowance to everybody to know that's what you're feeling and that's what you're going through. And it will be okay.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And for someone who's maybe listening and they maybe are approaching that stage or they just had a big life transition, they're trying to figure out like, okay, how do I navigate that? What would be the one smallest step they could take today to start moving towards that direction?
Yeah, so this has been so interesting in writing this series on transition. And if anybody's interested, it's all on my website, andreanakayama.com. But what I did with that series is I anchored each of the eight in a different model of transition that existed throughout time. And the first one really helped me see that we have to honor endings. So we often rush ahead and don't actually sit and recognize that something is ending. And so I think just kind of sitting with that and whether it's saying goodbye to this reality that is no longer in some way that works for you, even creating ritual around it, I think is a first step. There's lots more we can do, but I do think we either grasp for what is ended and don't actually acknowledge its ending, or we're looking to mask what the ending feels like and like really sitting with an ending and honoring it.
Mm. You're speaking to me so much. I'm actually putting my dog down tomorrow, and
Oh,
a 15, I've had her for 15 years. And so it's
yes.
tonight I'm taking that time to really just honor her and be with her. And yeah, it's that transition. But again, I'm experiencing that grief because of what the anticipated loss, but also the relief of knowing that she's going to be at
Not in
peace. And
pain. Yes.
yeah, exactly. And also the relief we've been caretaking for a long
Yes.
time with her. And so
Yes.
it is that like duality. And I think that's
Yes.
something that's like not shared. It's not always black and white. There's so much gray in that.
Yes.
I think it's so beautifully said how you said it, like, just honoring that, giving ritual, allowing it to have space. And
Yes.
yeah, and I think sometimes you're so, I mean, you've said it many times, like, we try to rush through things. And
Yes.
yeah, that beauty of the slowing down. And there's so many themes that really match, just not only like the physical body we've talked about, but like also the emotional body, mental,
Yes.
the overall life cycle. I think it's just absolutely beautiful that
Yes.
we can give our gift of that, give ourselves that gift of that space.
Yes, and really just thinking, I love that you just said space. One of the things that I've been looking at in the longevity world is how built spaces and the tools are associated with shame. If we think about like I've fallen and I can't get up, we laugh about it. Those save lives, but oftentimes older people don't wear them because of the stigma. So we haven't actually designed the world that receives us on the other side. And I feel like what I am envisioning is creating a safe space, like you have a sanctuary for women who are looking to be in dialogue and have a deeper conversation about aging and longevity, not just the fixes, but the actual conversation about what we need. Women are going to shape the longevity conversation. Men are shaping it with science and technology and investments, but
Yeah.
we're going to live longer. And so we're going to make the family decisions. We're going to make all of what the world is going to be for us as we age. And we are populations of women who are aging with more sensibility, more freedom, sensibility towards technology.
Yeah.
My mom's using her phone and doing things. We're
Yeah.
like, that's going to be commonplace for
Mhm.
us. That hasn't been true in previous generations. So I know that's not the conversation that many people here are thinking about at this point, but just shining a little bit of a light on
Yeah.
the future that we get to live.
Right.
We're
Yeah, I
lucky.
think yeah, absolutely. I think that's beautifully said. And I think you can almost see sort of like the start of the transition where like we've been in so much masculine energy of like do and fix. Like I think you're starting to see that feminine energy, whether you're male or female, but you see that feminine energy coming in where it's like, okay, I've been grinding for years. I'm exhausted. There's got to be a different way. And I think people almost have exhausted themselves on that go, 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 do, achieve that. It's almost like they've hit the limit of like being open to maybe there's something different. And I hope
Yes.
that that is the transition we're starting to see where we can have a space to be what we are without the need to fit it into what society's expectations are.
Exactly. One of the things I've been exploring is how, part of my personality is a warrior, but another part of my personality is healer. And I've been thinking, to your point, how much I've been in warrior mode for so long, and how can I welcome other parts of myself? So whether people relate to that language or not, I think a lot of our high achieving energy tends to be very masculine warrior energy. And I just invite everybody to think like, wait a minute, who else am I?
Right. Yes, exactly. Without the checklist and all the accolades we keep striving for, it's like what can you just be? And yeah,
Yes,
I think that's a gift, if anyone takes anything, it's just to give yourself that space of like, who am I if I'm not achieving? And you shared it earlier, allowing yourself to sleep, to just
yes.
enjoy your time and just like live the life without like constantly having to do. And I think it's such a powerful message and one that will shape your health in all aspects in so many ways. And
Absolutely.
this has been such a powerful conversation. I would love for anyone who has really resonated with it to connect with you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, Andrea Nakayama in all the places. So LinkedIn, I share on LinkedIn daily. On my website, you can sign up to get the series that I've been writing on transition and any new and upcoming offers on Instagram. Same, all Andrea Nakayama.
Awesome. I'll put everything in the show notes. So for anyone who's listening, definitely connect with Andrea. And I am so grateful for everything you shared. I know it's going to be one of those conversations that like plants the seed of living differently. So I really appreciate everything you shared today.
Thank you, Kelly. And I'm thinking about you and your big transition.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's all I'm going to be doing tonight. I'll be just enjoying that time with her. And
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And again, thank you for everyone who tuned in today. Share this episode. It's one of those messages that can't be shared enough. So thank you so much for spending your special precious time with us today. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If something in this episode stirred your truth, reminded you of your worth, or helped you see your patterns with more compassion, you're already rewiring your life. Remember, you don't have to earn your place, overgive to be valued, or shrink to keep the peace. You get to honor your voice, you get to protect your energy, you get to live aligned with who you really are. If you're ready to go deeper, explore more tools, or join a community of women walking this same path, head over to drkellykessler.com. Everything you need to continue this journey is waiting for you. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust yourself, and keep choosing the version of you who feels like home.